I knew something was wrong the day my best friend opened his college acceptance letter and screamed with joy, while mine never came. I wasn't worried at first. I thought maybe the mail was late, or maybe the university's portal just hadn't updated yet. But then one day turned into two turned into a week, and slowly, the silence around me became deafening. I had worked my whole life for this. Straight A's, extra credit projects, weekends sacrificed to studying while others went out. I wasn't the smartest kid in school, but I was relentless. Teachers used to say, if hard work alone could get you into college, you'll be at the top. So why was I sitting in my room, empty-handed, watching my friends celebrate their futures while mine hung in limbo? At first, I blamed myself. Maybe I messed up the applications. Maybe I missed a step. Maybe my essays weren't as strong as I thought. But when I logged into the portals, something strange caught my eye. Several applications weren't just pending, they were listed as incomplete. Missing transcripts, missing recommendations, missing essays. That made no sense. I remembered submitting them. I remembered double-checking. I even remembered sitting at the kitchen table late at night, carefully sealing envelopes, while my stepmother hovered nearby with her too-sweet smile. And that's when the first seed of suspicion planted itself in my mind. It wasn't the first time she had meddled in my life. For as long as I can remember, Nadia, my stepmother, had treated me like an unwanted guest in my own home. Not openly cruel, not the kind of abuse you could point at and call out, but subtle cutting. A missing dinner plate at the table. A forgotten reminder about a parent-teacher meeting. Constant comparisons to her own children, my stepbrother and stepsister, who, conveniently, never seemed to do anything wrong. Still, I had learned to live with it. I had my father, though he was often caught up in work, and I had my determination. I thought if I worked hard enough, if I succeeded enough, even she couldn't deny me a place in this world. But now, staring at those incomplete applications, a cold thought hit me. What if she didn't just forget this time? What if she made sure I never had a chance? The realization made my stomach turn. I didn't want to believe it, but the more I thought about it, the more the pieces fit. She had been the one who insisted on helping me with the mailing. She had been the one who checked the mailbox every afternoon. She had smiled too brightly every time someone mentioned college around me, as if she knew something I didn't. And suddenly I knew. She hadn't just hoped I would fail. She had ensured it. That night, I sat in my room, staring at the ceiling, anger bubbling in my chest. I could feel the betrayal burning through me. My own stepmother, the woman who was supposed to at least tolerate me, had sabotaged the one thing I'd been working toward my entire life. But if she thought that was the end of my story, she didn't know me at all. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to fight, quietly, patiently, carefully, because if there's one thing I've learned from her, it's that masks eventually slip. And when hers did, I'd be ready. I didn't confront her right away. That would have been too easy, and she would only deny it, twisting the story until I looked paranoid. That was her talent, making others look unreasonable while she stood there calm, smiling sweetly. No, if I was going to expose her, I needed to be smarter than that. So I started watching. The first thing I noticed was the mailbox. For years, I never paid much attention to who collected the mail. Sometimes my dad, sometimes me, often her. But after the whole college fiasco, I realized she never missed it. Even if she was in the middle of cooking or watching TV, she'd drop everything to step outside when the mail truck came. At first, I told myself it was nothing. But then I noticed how quickly she shuffled through the envelopes, slipping some aside before the rest landed on the counter. One day, I decided to test it. I ordered a catalog from a college I hadn't applied to, just to see if it would arrive. Sure enough, 2 weeks later I saw the thick envelope in her hands as she walked inside. But when I checked the counter later, it wasn't there. That was when I knew. She wasn't just helping with mail. She was filtering it. The second thing I noticed was how careful she became around me. Normally, she was dismissive, throwing little jabs about how I ate too much or studied too little. But after the application fiasco, her tone changed. Too sweet, too gentle, like she thought I was a ticking bomb she had to keep calm. "Don't worry, sweetheart," she'd say when college came up at the dinner table. "Not everyone's cut out for big universities. Community college is a perfectly good option. Some people even thrive there. The way she said it with that soft little smile made my skin crawl. My father, of course, ate it up. He was always working, always exhausted, always grateful that Nadia kept the house running. If she said something, he believed it. When I tried to hint that something felt off, he waved me off with, "Lucy, don't stress yourself out. You'll get your chance." But I couldn't shake the feeling, couldn't let it go. So I began keeping records. Every missing envelope, every email confirmation I had versus what the schools reported. I printed copies, kept them hidden in a folder under my bed. I wrote down the dates she rushed to the mailbox, the catalogs and letters that vanished. Piece by piece, I built my own little archive. I also began to test her directly. One evening, I left a fake acceptance letter I had mocked up on the printer, obvious enough for her to notice but tucked just slightly out of sight. Then I went upstairs and waited. Within half an hour, I heard her footsteps. Later, when I checked, the paper was gone. When I confronted her casually about it the next day, she smiled like butter wouldn't melt in her mouth. "Oh, I thought it was just scrap. I must have tossed it." Her eyes held mine a moment too long. She knew I was testing her. And I knew she knew. The tension between us grew, thick and silent. Every time we crossed paths in the hallway, it felt like a chess game. Her smile versus my stare. Her small comments versus my silence. But here's the thing about people like her. They get comfortable. They get arrogant. They think they've already won. And that arrogance always leaves cracks. One afternoon, I came home early from school. The house was quiet except for her voice, low and sharp. She was on the phone in the kitchen, pacing. I paused by the stairwell, listening. Yes, I made sure. His transcripts never went through. Of course he doesn't know. He's too busy moping around. No, I'm not worried. He'll end up at community college, which is exactly where he belongs. My kids are the priority, not him. My heart hammered in my chest. I wanted to storm in, scream, record her right then. But I forced myself to stay quiet, memorizing every word. It was the first time I had actual confirmation, spoken proof that she had interfered. That night, I lay awake thinking about her words. My kids are the priority, not him. That was what it came down to. She didn't see me as part of the family. I was an obstacle, a shadow of my father's past. Something she had to sideline to make room for her own children. But what she didn't realize was that the more she tried to erase me, the more determined I became to carve out my place. From that day, my plan changed. It wasn't just about catching her. It was about turning the tables so completely that when the truth came out, she wouldn't just lose her mask. She'd lose her power. The opportunity came when my school counselor asked me why I hadn't followed up on my college applications. I hesitated, then decided to take the risk. I told her everything, not just about the missing applications but about my suspicions, the mail, the fake tests. To my surprise, she didn't dismiss me. She leaned forward, her expression serious, and said, "Lucy, if that's true, we can request direct verification from the universities. And if something's been tampered with, we'll know." I agreed, my heart pounding. Over the next few weeks, she reached out to several admissions offices. Slowly, the replies trickled back. Some confirmed that materials were never received, despite me having email confirmations. Others noted that essays had been withdrawn before review. Withdrawn. As if someone with access to my login had canceled them. When my counselor showed me the records, I felt both sick and vindicated. Someone had gone into my accounts. Someone had erased my chances. And there was only one person in that house who had both the motive and the opportunity. Still, suspicion wasn't enough. I needed undeniable proof. So I set a trap. I changed the password to my email, but left a sticky note with the old one tucked in my desk drawer. The same drawer she often rifled through when she thought I wasn't looking. Then I set up alerts on the account, so anytime someone logged in with the wrong password, I'd be notified. It didn't take long. 2 nights later, I got the alert. Someone had tried, and failed, to access my email. When I checked the time, my stomach twisted. It was exactly when Nadia had gone upstairs to take a shower. The pieces were aligning. The only thing left was the final blow, the moment when I could catch her red-handed, with no room for denial. I didn't know when it would come or how, but I was ready. Every night, I went to sleep with the folder of evidence under my bed, growing thicker by the week. Every day, I watched her smile, knowing the mask would eventually crack. And when it did, I would be there. Because this wasn't just about college anymore. This was about my life. And I wasn't going to let her steal it from me. The night I set the email trap, something inside me shifted. For months, maybe even years, I'd let Nadia play her game unchecked. I had been her scapegoat, her target, her punching bag wrapped in polite smiles. But now I had proof. Not just suspicions, not just whispers in my head, real, tangible proof that she was tampering with my future. And once you taste proof, you stop being afraid. She must have sensed something had changed in me, because she started acting even stranger. At dinner, she'd watch me too closely, her fork pausing halfway to her mouth whenever I spoke. When Dad mentioned college, she'd quickly change the subject. Even her fake sweetness grew sharper, like honey laced with vinegar. "You know, Lucy," she said one night, smiling as she passed me the salad bowl, "not everyone's destined for the big universities. Some people do much better in smaller environments, closer to home." Her kids giggled at the table, as if they knew what she meant. I kept my face blank, even as my insides churned. She was already writing my obituary, already burying me in mediocrity, convinced she'd won. But what she didn't know was that I had started my own war. I doubled down on documentation. I copied every alert from my email account. I saved screenshots showing the failed login attempts. I even printed out the notifications with the timestamps circled in red ink. Then, just to make sure I wasn't imagining it, I installed a keystroke tracker on my laptop. Not to spy on anyone else, but to see if my passwords were being tested when I wasn't there. And they were. 3 times in 1 week, someone tried to log into my college portals after midnight. 3 times the tracker picked up the attempts. 3 times the attempts failed. The next mornings, Nadia always looked tired, her eyes shadowed, as though she hadn't slept well. I knew why, but suspicion and tech alerts weren't enough. I needed to catch her in a way she couldn't escape, a way that even my father, blind, loyal, gullible, couldn't deny. So I staged a performance. One Saturday afternoon, I left a freshly printed scholarship letter on the kitchen counter. It was fake, of course, something I designed on my computer, formatted to look official, promising me a generous award to a university I hadn't even applied to. Then I left the house, telling Nadia I was meeting a friend. I didn't. I circled back half an hour later and slipped into the garage, leaving the side door cracked open just enough to hear. Sure enough, within minutes, I heard her footsteps in the kitchen. A pause, the rustle of paper, then her voice, low and sharp, on the phone. "Yes, she got something today. A scholarship letter. I'll take care of it before she shows her father. No, don't worry. She's not going anywhere. I told you my kids will get every chance. She won't." My hands shook as I recorded the audio on my phone, my breath shallow. There it was. Her voice, her words, her plan, all captured in crystal clarity. When I played it back later, I couldn't stop smiling. For the first time, I wasn't the powerless one. I had her confession, her mask ripped away, her voice betraying everything she tried to hide. The question was how to use it. Part of me wanted to play it for Dad immediately, to shove the phone in his face and scream, "Listen! Listen to what she's been doing." But another part of me knew that if I did, she'd find a way to spin it. She always did. She'd cry, claim it was taken out of context, say she was talking about something else. Dad might believe her. No, this needed to be bigger, public, unavoidable, something that would rip the mask off her face in front of everyone so there'd be no way to patch it back on. And the perfect stage was already approaching. Graduation. In just a few weeks, the entire family, the school staff, and half the town would be gathered in the gymnasium. Nadia would be there, smiling in the crowd, her children sitting smugly beside her. And I would have the microphone, the attention, the moment to decide how this story would end. But I wasn't ready yet. I needed more. So I kept playing the dutiful stepchild. I smiled at dinner, nodded when she gave me advice, and pretended not to notice when college came up in conversation. All the while, I was building my arsenal. I asked my counselor to send me official copies of the verification letters from the universities. Each one confirmed what I already knew. My applications had been interfered with, altered, or withdrawn. I printed them, tucked them into my folder. I collected screenshots of my login history, each attempt logged with timestamps. Piece by piece, I was creating a case no one could deny. But Nadia wasn't stupid. She sensed something slipping, and she got bolder in her attempts to control me. One evening, she barged into my room without knocking, holding a stack of envelopes. "These came for you," she said with a tight smile, setting them on my desk. "You should be more careful about checking the mail. Wouldn't want to miss anything important." I glanced at the envelopes. Junk mail, local flyers, nothing of value. "Thanks," I said flatly. She lingered in the doorway, studying me. "You've been quiet lately," she said softly. "I hope you're not holding on to any disappointments. Life has a way of putting people where they belong." Her words dripped with meaning. I clenched my jaw and forced a smile. "You're right. People always end up where they belong." She narrowed her eyes, as if trying to read between the lines. Then she left, and I exhaled slowly, my heart pounding. She knew something. She just didn't know how much. The weeks crept by, each day heavy with anticipation. Graduation drew closer and my folder grew thicker. By the time June arrived, I had everything. The audio recording, the university confirmations, the login alerts, the suspiciously vanished letters. It was more than proof, it was a weapon. But then, just days before graduation, Nadia made her boldest move yet. I came home from school to find my room ransacked. My drawers were pulled open, my desk overturned, papers scattered everywhere. Panic surged through me as I dropped to my knees, shoving aside books and folders. The one thing missing was my evidence folder. I tore through the room, my chest tight, my hands shaking. It was gone. She had taken it. Rage boiled inside me. She had crossed the line. She wasn't just sabotaging me anymore. She was openly declaring war. But what she didn't realize was that I had expected this. The folder under my bed was a decoy. The real evidence was stored on a flash drive hidden inside the lining of my backpack, with copies uploaded to a secure cloud account under a secret email she couldn't touch. So when she smirked at me over dinner that night, acting as though nothing had happened, I smirked right back. Let her think she had won. Let her think she had destroyed me. Because in just a few days, she was going to learn that every move she made only dug her grave deeper. Graduation night was coming, and I was ready. Graduation night arrived with the weight of 1,000 storms pressing on my chest. I woke up that morning with my stomach in knots, my hands trembling as I tried to button my shirt. This wasn't just a ceremony for me. It was the battlefield, the place where months of quiet planning would finally erupt into truth. The gymnasium buzzed with life. Families filled the bleachers. Cameras flashed. Students lined up in their gowns. Laughter and chatter echoing off the walls. From the stage, I scanned the crowd until I found her. Nadia sat near the front, dressed impeccably, her lipstick flawless, her smile wide. She clapped politely as names were called, her children seated beside her like royalty. Her eyes met mine, and for just a second, her smile faltered. Maybe it was nerves, maybe she sensed the storm coming. Either way, I held her gaze and let the silence between us speak volumes. Tonight, her mask would break. The ceremony began, speeches rolling on, names called, cheers erupting. My turn crept closer, every second stretching into an eternity. When finally my name was called, I walked across the stage, the diploma in my hand, the flash of cameras blinding. I shook hands, posed for pictures, smiled like every other graduate. But inside, my heart was pounding not from pride, but from anticipation. Then came the moment I had been waiting for. The principal stepped forward to invite a few student representatives to share their reflections on the journey. I was one of them. The microphone crackled as I walked up, the weight of every eye in the room pressing down on me. I began simply, my voice steady. Tonight, we celebrate more than just finishing school. We celebrate the struggles, the sacrifices, the moments that shaped us into who we are. The audience nodded, smiled, some wiping tears. I let the warmth build for a moment, then shifted. But sometimes, I continued, my tone sharpening. The struggles don't just come from exams or essays. Sometimes they come from people we trust. People who smile at us, tell us they're proud, and yet quietly work to hold us back. A murmur rippled through the crowd. I saw Nadia stiffen in her seat, her smile tightening, her hands clutching her purse. I went on. This year, as I applied for colleges, I thought I was chasing my dream. I submitted every form, every essay, every transcript. I believed my hard work would finally pay off. But then, my applications went missing. Letters never arrived. Accounts showed withdrawals I never made. Gasps echoed through the gym. I paused, letting the words sink in, my eyes locked on hers. She looked frozen, her painted face stiff, the mask cracking around the edges. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the flash drive, holding it up. What I didn't know then was that someone close to me was tampering with my future. But what they didn't know was that I kept records. Every login attempt, every vanished letter, every word they spoke when they thought I wasn't listening. The gym went silent, the kind of silence that feels like thunder building. Nadia's children shifted uneasily beside her, whispering. My father's brow furrowed, confusion dawning in his eyes. And then I played it. The principal had given me permission to show a slideshow, thinking I'd share photos. Instead, I plugged in the flash drive, and through the speakers came the recording. Yes, I made sure. His transcripts never went through. Of course he doesn't know. He's too busy moping around. My kids are the priority, not him. The voice was unmistakable. Nadia's voice. Sharp, cold, dripping with contempt. The audience erupted. Gasps, whispers, even a few outraged shouts. All eyes turned toward her. She sat rigid, her face drained of color, her hands gripping the seat so tightly her knuckles went white. I let the recording finish, then looked out at the crowd. That was my stepmother, the woman who smiled at me every day while quietly trying to erase me. But she forgot one thing. You can't erase the truth. The truth always finds its way out. Applause broke out. Hesitant at first, then louder, stronger, rolling through the gym like a wave. Some parents clapped, some stood, others shook their heads in disbelief. My father stared at Nadia, his mouth open, his eyes blazing with betrayal. She tried to speak, tried to defend herself, but the noise drowned her out. Her children shrank back, embarrassed, as whispers swirled around them. For the first time, her mask had shattered in front of everyone, and there was no gluing it back together. I stepped away from the microphone, my heart pounding, my chest heaving. I had done it. Months of planning, sleepless nights, endless fear. All of it had led to this moment. After the ceremony, chaos erupted. Families congratulated their kids. Photos were taken. Laughter filled the air. But at the center of it all, my father cornered Nadia, his face grim. They argued in hushed, heated tones, her hands flailing, his voice sharp. I didn't need to hear the words to know what was happening. That night, for the first time in years, I slept peacefully. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. My father filed for separation. Nadia moved out, her perfect mask shattered, her reputation in tatters. People in town whispered, the scandal clinging to her like a stain she couldn't wash out. Her children avoided me at school, their once smug expressions replaced with shame. As for me, I appealed my applications. With the counselor's help, I resubmitted the missing documents, explained the interference. A few colleges reopened their review. And then, one afternoon, I opened the mailbox. My mailbox, not hers, and found the letter I'd been waiting for. Congratulations, it read. We are pleased to offer you admission. I stood in the driveway, the sunlight warm on my face, the paper trembling in my hands, and for the first time in years, I felt free. Looking back now, I realized something important. Revenge isn't about anger or even payback. It's about reclaiming what someone tried to steal from you. Nadia tried to take my future, my dignity, my sense of worth. But in the end, all she did was hand me the chance to prove how strong I really was. And standing there, acceptance letter in hand, I knew this wasn't just the end of a story. It was the beginning of mine.